democratize resources and economic growth. Now, if we look closely, these are not just the themes, they are system requirements of a system in place. You cannot have AI at scale without the right talent. And I think some of us in the room have already started feeling pain of that. You cannot achieve scale without the elastic infrastructure. You cannot run infrastructure without sustainable energy. And equally, adoption begins with trust. We have few folks in the room from AI use cases who have been trusting AI. Resilience is built on sensing, and inclusion is driven by access. These are not independent ideas, they are deeply interconnected parts of one system. And at the end of the day, impact is defined by real and inclusive economic outcomes. Today, India stands at a unique inflection point. The world is increasingly looking at India not just as a market of AI, but as a nation capable of shaping how AI is built, governed, and deployed at this population scale. From digital identity to real time payments to public digital platforms, India has shown that when technology is designed as shared infrastructure, it can unlock both innovation and inclusion. So, the real question before us is what does it truly take to build AI system as critical infrastructure? Not as pilots, not as dashboards, not as isolated experiment, but as reliable, continuously operating systems embedded across agriculture, climate, energy, telecom, finance, and public institutions. This becomes especially relevant as India begins to build platforms like AgriStack and invest in climate intelligence and foundational model that can serve not only the national priorities but global challenges. Because planet scale problems such as food security, climate resilience, and sustainable growth require planet scale intelligence, today's conversation is not about the AI hype. We are well past that stage. It is about scale, durability, and value of AI can provide. At SATShop, we see ourselves the very much in work in progress, building decision systems that deliver end-to-end intelligence, including the last mile, across critical sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, and food security. As we continue this journey of deploying AI scale, we are equally here to listen and to learn and to draw inspiration from how other sectors and geographies are navigating different dimensions of impact driven by AI and treating it as a system. By the end of this session, we hope the room leaves with greater clarity on one central idea. What does it take to build planet scale intelligence for economic growth and AI as the next layer of digital public infrastructure? With that, if UPI was India's model for financial inclusion, AI has the potential to become its model for intelligence inclusion, open, interoperable, and accessible at the population scale. With that, it is my pleasure to invite our moderator Pradeep Basu, CEO of SATShore, to guide this discussion and for helping us unpack some of these question parts with a very esteemed panel, starting with Gaurav Agarwal. He's the Chief AI Scientist at Geo. Gaurav operates as national scale AI deployment, where latency, reliability, capital allocation, and data governance matter as much as a model accuracy. His work spans multiple multimodal datasets, telecom networks, distributed system, and platform AI infrastructure. Welcome, Gaurav. Next up, we have Arun Sharma, CEO of Rezonia. Arun leads the large scale power transmission infrastructure, the backbone that supports renewable integration, data center expansion, national energy security, etc. I think we have Derek Jose, the MD Industrial AI at Accenture. Derek has spent decades operationalizing AI in asset heavy environments, manufacturing, energy, and utilities, where uptime, safety, and climate exposure define the P&L. He brings a practitioner's lens to converting AI pilots into industrial operating system. We have Michael Zan, global partner at Dalberg Advisors. Michael works at intersection of technology, policy, inclusive development across emerging markets. His work examines how detection capacity, financial data can reshape institutional design for climate resilience and economic inclusion. In addition, we have a surprise guest with us. We have Gaurav Kataria, who is leading the manufacturing of at ITC as well as looks at the strategic decisions over there. Thank you. Now I hand over to Prateep to begin the discussion, and please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you so much to all the panelists for joining us. As Divya mentioned, despite the very heavy security that is today at Bharat Mandapam. So we'll move on from the security hassles to the more exciting part of our panel, which is understanding from your experiences about how, from your vantage point, you are looking at building AI, the impact of AI in your respective areas of work, as well as how the experiences that you've had in deploying large scale systems is sometimes disconnected to the overall impact, whether it's business impact or impact on the ground. So I'll start my questions first with Michael, maybe going in this order to the left. So, Michael, if governments in the global south want to invest in intelligence and infrastructure for inclusive growth, and at Dalberg, you have been at the forefront of so many programs globally, and it spans agriculture, finance, climate, energy. Which investments have you seen yield the highest compounding returns? And also, what were the gaps or gaps or leakages that you saw, which you could point out to things like capacity building, lack of data standards, open source tools, stuff like this. From your experiences, if you could share a few notes.
Thank you, Pradeep. I mean, I think the good news is that we're seeing a lot of interest, growing interest from governments around the world. And I personally, I spend a lot of my time in Africa, in Southeast Asia, a bit in South Asia, and a bit in Latin America, looking at geospatial intelligence as well as an AI overlays on geospatial intelligence as tools for everything from energy transition planning to food system surveillance, food security, and to climate resilience of physical infrastructure. So the good news is, I think interest is growing in kind of planetary intelligence solutions. Um, I mean, I think there is a realization that you need you need dynamic and more granular and more dynamic intelligence to deal with things such as the roughly $800 billion a year uh, uh, economic losses for infrastructure due to climate damage and climate disasters, to address problems, really intractable problems, such as the fact that we've got nearly a billion people globally who are suffering from severe food insecurity, 300 million from extreme hunger in last year alone. And that's a problem that's increasing with climate events. So how do you plan for that? How do you plan around that? And how do you plan for anticipatory response? And other challenges such as energy transition for the hundreds of millions, over 700 million who don't have energy access. The challenge in adopting these kinds of solutions, we see a few different challenges of why these things aren't being adopted quickly enough or adopted at large enough scale. So the first is, I think, as you mentioned, Pradeep, the issue of uh, technical capacity and talent. Um, to localize these solutions, to provide the local data pipelines for such solutions. And I think the issue is often not sensing, but sense making, right? That analytical capacity to actually make use of these insights. That's one problem. The second is, I think, institutional incentives. Often there's not an empowered decision maker who also has a budget to purchase such systems. Often decision making is distributed across many different institutions, ministries, and so forth. So there are politics involved, and who actually can pay for these things. And then procurement systems are not fit for purpose. Like people just don't understand what it entails to invest in a national scale, let's say, or subnational scale intelligence system. The third point I wanted to make, and then maybe I'll uh, hand the mic over, is um, I think there's something here about. I mean, there are issues of trust, but there are also issues of a lack of quantification of both the economic case to invest and adopt such systems, and kind of a lack of quantification of the opportunity cost of ignorance. right? So people think about these things as, you know, how do I compare the cost of investing in this versus doing one-time surveys, as opposed to, will this investment dramatically reduce costs for the whole system around, let's say, the food system or physical infrastructure. So maybe those are some initial observations.
So the great points, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing, especially on the aspect of opportunity cost, which is sometimes fuzzy and people don't think about it. Speaking of opportunity cost, uh, at India, where you have so much of scale for addressing each of these issues, infrastructure for AI has traditionally been a challenge, but of late, several companies and big ones jumped into the AI infrastructure game. So my question to Gaurav directly feeds into that aspect, which is since you're working at Reliance, you're heading the Reliance AI arm, which is building a gigawatt scale AI-ready data center. Uh, how do you envision public-private partnerships, Gaurav, and open data rails that ensures that the AI infrastructure that we are building becomes a shared asset for economic growth of the nation across different domains, energy, finance, climate? So, yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Thanks again, Pradeep and Divya, for having me here. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, that was too loud. Okay, so I'll probably start on why that massive infrastructure is needed. And I'll take go away from agriculture to other long-standing core problems in India, countries like India. I won't call it global south, as Pradeep said. He doesn't like. We are in north, so why are we calling ourselves global south? It doesn't make sense geographically. I think we should just go back to our geography. Uh, Healthcare, education. Let's pick on education. Uh, while we talk about the magic of AI, there are still tens of millions of kids, if not hundreds of millions of kids, living in villages, remote villages, who don't have access to good schools or teachers. I mean, I'm talking about the ones who are really interested in studying. Uh, AI can solve problems for them. Like, it's like we Indians have leapfrogged so many times. We didn't have, we had trouble of getting phone lines. I remember when I was a kid, it took years for us to get phone line. So finally, the mobile happened, and there are more mobile connections than phone lines. I think AI has that power to do the same for education, healthcare. You will never have enough number of good doctors or good teachers, but AI can do that. But at what cost? We are talking about kids probably from a poor family or relatively weaker section of the society sitting in a village, but they have good internet connection thanks to Geo and many others actually at a cost they can afford. Uh, but if you look at the AI cost today, uh, this is an interactive session in a like a chatbot acting like a teacher speaking in the same dialect, let's say, of the kid. Currently, the cost of accessing that AI, even with some hallucination, is like 10 rupees per minute. Just imagine if a child wants to study for 3-4 hours in a day, 240 minutes, 10 rupees per minute, 2,400 rupees. I mean, that's not a solution for India. It sounds great, and I think it sort of works. I don't know how many parents, even in urban areas, will be able to afford that kind of money. So I think in India, anything you build at scale, it has to be cost effective. Whether it is internet connectivity, whether it is transportation, whether it is AI. So one of the reasons, now coming back to your question, Pradeep, I think the reason we have to have massive infra at every level of the stack, from energy, sometimes we miss out on energy. I mean, in America, people are having discussions about energy. In fact, many of the people who are not in the AI ecosystem, they are upset that their electricity prices are going up because of AI. I don't know how much of that is true, but there has been discussions around that. So you need energy, you need data centers, you need GPUs, you need AI frameworks, you need models, then you need the applications, right? So while to us it sounds like AI tutor or AI teacher is like just an application, but the cost, the 10 rupees per minute that you are paying, it going to every participant in that stack. So in India, for us to get down to, I don't know, what is the affordable, say, situation in this. 2,400 is clearly not. In my stupid mind, I think it should not cost more than a glass of milk. Even if the person, kid is poor, they say, okay, I will not drink milk today. I'll rather study. Possibly, right? I mean, so more than, it should not be more than 20, 30 rupees. So we had to come down to like 10, 20 paisa per minute level from 10 rupees. So it's like 100x lower. It's not even 10x lower. And the only way we can do is if we have GPUs is something tricky, but every other part of the, from energy to application, if we own, when I say we, I talk about ecosystem, not just as part of my employer. I think as an ecosystem we own in India, instead of have to pay for it like we pay for oil, we have a better chance of getting to that reality. So I take the example of education, because to me, if we can't solve education, healthcare, long-standing problems for the largest mass of humanity, which is in India, I think we as AI scientists should be ashamed of ourselves. So only way we can do it is if we can bring the cost down, and hence that massive infrastructure built and largely owned here is important. That's the only way we can get to the cost levels that will work for us. I don't know if it answers your question, but it sort of covers it.
No, absolutely. The fact that AI infrastructure has to be made affordable to meet the needs of India is one of the most important reasons why we need to have our own sovereign AI capabilities across the stack. So thank you, Gaurav, for answering that in detail from your perspective. My next question would be to Derek. Derek, you know, there have been now comments made already by the panelists on the affordability of AI, the adaptability of AI across different industries, and also the aspect of opportunity cost and ROI. You have been heading so many initiatives at Accenture supporting large enterprises in their transformation. But mostly industrial AI initiatives that begin as pilots, right? And only a few in the enterprises make it from pilot to actual system level scale, where it becomes a part of your business process operating systems. So, what from your experience separates those few 10% maybe? Initiatives that actually cut the business case with your clientele.
Uh, Great question. Can you hear me? Yeah, yeah. So I'll take an actual example of something we executed. So this was for a consumer product company um, based in Poland. They manufacture mayonnaise, and the number of defects, which defective mayonnaise, either they don't adjust the set points too well, so it comes out very thick, or it comes out very liquidy, so to speak, right? I mean, so the problem statement was, how do you recommend a set point to the operator so that you don't get a thick mayonnaise or a fluidy mayonnaise? So that's what we started off with. And we ran the algorithms, it learned. But the most important aspect of it, when we actually wanted to scale, was earning the trust of the frontline operator. Okay. So those guys are very skeptical about the recommendations made. So we almost spent 7 months benchmarking a human operation with an agent recommendation. Okay. So in order for us to earn the trust, they have to see the data point. So that's one dimension of scale, I would say. The second aspect of it is the incentives you design for the operator has to be aligned with it. So the operator gets incentivized, he gets a production benefit, right? So the number of projects is low, he gets a production bonus, so to speak. Now he began to see that production bonus, which he is getting, gets enhanced when he uses AI. Okay. And naturally, his behavior started aligning. So, one of the blind spots in scaling is designing incentives for the frontline folks so that they see that adoption of this is a friendly guy who's going to help you make money, so to speak, right? If you're able to bridge the gap between the outcome of the operation to the outcome of the individual through incentive design, uh, I think a lot of alignment can happen, and many people miss this human aspect of it. People respond to incentives, and behaviors have to be modified. So that is one aspect of scaling, actually. The the mantra for scaling for us is earning the trust. So it's a simple equation. Trust means reliability of the tasks the agent is doing, scalability for multiple plants. So we did it for multiple countries, Poland, Thailand, India. So it was able to scale across multiple countries. It was able to scale across large volumes of data, structured or unstructured. And last, the important thing was it was able to align with the incentives for the operator. But if you have, so if any of these dimensions are missing, no, it becomes part of the POC graveyard, so to speak, right? So you create a lot of some shiny new demos, but it doesn't operationally scale and become. But another important aspect of it is agents are like humans, they'll fail. Okay, so one of the expectation we had to set was don't look at the first instance of a recommendation, look at the seventh instance of it. So one of the metrics we introduced was what is the learnability of it. It's like a child, right? It learns to crawl, then walk and run, right? So the rate at which it's learning is more important than the absolute performance of the task in the initial phases. So unless until that expectation is set, people start judging the first time the agent recommends. It's like screaming at a child when it falls down. He'll never learn, right? So and that's also one. Learnability metrics are important part of scaling. And if the learnability, so initially the reliability could be low, but if the learnability is high, eventually it'll catch up. Yeah.
That's a great example. Honestly, when even from our experience, we have seen that unless the incentives are aligned, whether it's at the core an AI initiative or any digital initiative, the success of an adoption in enterprises really happens. So thanks for sharing that anecdote, Derek. My next question is to Gaurav. Gaurav, you have been leading the digital initiatives at ITC's Purfoot division for a while now, and the kind of core business you are into is exposed very heavily to climate risk, whether it's your procurement planning, the entire supply chain risk, regulatory compliances. So, how do you see AI changing your kind of business in the next 5 to 7 years with everything that's happening around, and what do you see as gaps in connecting all of these elements of your business?
Right. Thanks, Pradeep. I, so I'll start off by saying that, my true belief is AI is here to augment human capacity, right? And if with that premise, if we keep that in mind, humans have a certain way in which they think and in a certain way in which they're able to do risk profiling. For example, AI is not there as yet, right? While I know it's the shiny object in the room, but at the end of the day, it is not easy to crack and get answers from AI. It could be we've and I don't know how many people know, especially youngsters who haven't seen the transformation from no AI to AI or no computers to AI. I think the AI research started way back in 1950s, right? And that's where we are, here today, where we're all gathered here, a lakh and a half individuals buzzing around Bharat Mandapam to, understand and unravel the mysteries of AI. So, it's not easy, right? But having said that, does it have a huge potential to unlock value as we move forward? Absolutely. Even within our business or the other businesses that I've worked with, we've seen a dramatic amount of uptake of machine learning or AI tools within our processes. But I've realized that in all cases, it's only worked when we've actually taken a step back, relooked at our processes, and really redesigned our processes, and not the other way around. So you're not using AI just from a sense of just, it's a cool technology and let's go and figure out where it will fit. But it's the other way around to really figure out what are those pain points that I need to solve today, which the human, cannot do because maybe there is massive amounts of data that needs to be analyzed. And, where can I really apply AI? Because everything doesn't warrant AI to be applied or an agentic AI workflow to be applied, but we can solve these in simple workflows as well. So really figuring out those problem statements and then getting everybody around it. Now coming back to your other point of where do we see this unlock value? Yes, at least from our business perspective, and not only in the paper business but all of ITC, and there are a lot of FMCG businesses as well across the globe, which are reliant on the agri food chain. It could be, procurement, for example. We saw disruptions during COVID where our supply chains got disrupted. Things like the Swiss Canal led to those disruptions led to supply chains getting disrupted. So there are multiple of those areas where you will see disruption, and when you actually see technology which can actually help you risk mitigate, it can help you give you alternatives of A versus B versus C, help you simulate situations and scenarios. That's where things start getting real, and the benefits start getting unlocked. So you have to take it step by step, and you have to take it with everybody along. And I agree to what Derek said. It's finally a change management problem. I think all of us are smart enough to solve the technology challenges. It will evolve. Moore's law played out really, really well for all of us. Doubling capacity and intelligence and stuff like that. That's how we are here. So I think we will solve for all of that as humankind. But I think we have to take everybody along, and I think that's important, right? We are seeing three outcomes, that are playing out today for our business, and it will continue to play out as we go forward and only get magnified. One is that we are seeing efficiency improvements, productivity improvement, efficiency improvement, bottom line impact through the application of AI. Second, we are seeing new values, new revenue stream business models getting unlocked from a revenue uptake perspective, from a business standpoint. And third, most importantly, is the whole aspect of societal impact. It could be sustainability, it could be safety in the shop floor, right? So those are very, very important outcomes. And we are seeing an impact of AI across these three outcomes. And I think it will only get magnified as we move forward.
Those are excellent points, Gaurav. Thank you so much for sharing. And I like it how everyone points seem to be interconnected, making my job easy. So, the change management aspect is something which people do not speak about much, because usually I have seen, at least from my experience, that that's the reason of going over from POC to actual scale, and managing that as process is very important. Indeed, it leads to the next question I actually have for you, Michael, because you have been part of architecting so many different initiatives across agriculture, water, climate risk across the world. And there is a saying that you build for India, then you build for the world. Would you agree with that? How do you see it structurally same, or there are nuances and differences when you try to scale systems that are built in India across, let's say, Africa, East Africa? Africa is also huge, I should say, one part of Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I think India is an amazing sandbox, but some elements of this translate, some do not. So, a few, I think, obvious points. One is around digital public infrastructure, all right, and the different layers that India has that are quite well developed simply do not exist in many other places. And so that is one constraint where you cannot plug and play when those DPIs are not in place. I think the second point I think is around scale. India's scale allows for certain kinds of business models that are just not viable in a place like Rwanda with a 10 million person population, or Kenya with a 40 million person population. And so you need some business model innovation to actually be able to make these models work. But I think the third really comes back to this point of change management and institutional design, like the boring plumbing of actually transferring innovation. That boring plumbing is really, really difficult and time consuming, and requires partnering locally, and actually building local ecosystem. For example, building local ecosystems of developers that can localize solutions, that can develop the local data pipelines, that can develop the local benchmarks, and that inherently will have more trust from the local ecosystem and more entry points to adapt the Indian innovation.
That's great to understand that we do have pathway for scaling innovations from India to other parts of the world as well, this with the limitations of, and let's say caution. So thank you, Michael, for answering that. My next question is again back to Gaurav. Gaurav, if India were to design a true planet scale intelligence stack which spans telecom networks, agriculture, climate, financial systems, energy, what architectural choices would determine whether it becomes a growth engine for the nation, and that's something which also becomes let's say a system that others could also emulate elsewhere.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I think in this case, India differs from West definitely. Again, if you look at look at, let's say, WhatsApp chats of your blue collar workers, your maid, your cooks, your drivers. I mean, you should not do it, but still, let's say you've seen it. They are full of voice notes. I have never used a voice note in my WhatsApp or anything. I was very surprised first time I looked at it. You won't see that very commonly in the West. At least till now, I don't know if things have changed, but the reason is we are comfortable. We are like typing junkies. Like that's how we grew up. But the rest of the Bharat, as we call it, right? I mean, they don't have access to computers. They have mobile phones, which are all very good compute devices, and they don't know English that well. Many of them don't know even their mother tongue that well. They can speak in their mother tongue. Other thing is like, while we talk about digitization and these smart devices, smartphones, I mean, try typing in your mother tongue, and good luck with that. All the matras and everything. So good luck with that. It's going to take double the time. So voice is the new typing in India, in countries like India. But instead of voice notes, just imagine if your new interface of everything you do is voice, then it is as good as typing. So I think So the reason I'm giving this anecdote is it's not just about the scale, but the reality of the people, the masses that we are creating with. We have to understand that it's kind of different. I mean, you can try to scale ChatGPT, Gemini as much as you want in the current avatar, but till they became voice first interfaces, there's no adoption. There was no adoption. I mean, they were just fancy gadgets, as someone said, right? They were. So I think those are the realities. So the tech stack that we build here, not only it has to be cost effective, but also it has to understand the realities of India. And we Indians are very smart. Very people call them price sensitive. I think we are careful with our money. We will pay for anything as long as it makes sense. So the same will be true for AI, especially again beyond the top 20, 30 million population. I think they will pay for it as long as it makes sense. It serves their lives in a good way. Like there is probably hardly anyone in India remaining who doesn't have a data connection, the mobile data connection. I mean, it's cost 5-6 rupees a day, 7 rupees a day, and they get enough out of it. Maybe entertainment, but it serves their needs, human needs. So I think same thing will happen with AI, whether it is their needs uh, to solve their issues, or get informational content regarding a benefit from the government, or whether it is booking a ticket, whether anything, as long as it sort of serves a need that is critical to them at a price they can afford. I think India will do it. So I think I will not go back to the technical part of the stack. I think that we have covered the scale, and the cost of sustaining that scale is important. But I think we have to understand the use cases that are critical to the Indian needs, and I think some of those are human needs actually. As I started my response with, it's not like we were born with the ability to type. We were born with the ability to speak. So I think many of these needs, maybe because of we still being a developing nation, they are, or the educational standards are not as at par with the West. But I think they just remind us those are the basic human capabilities, and AI has to come to that, rather humans having to learn something to use AI. So I think that is the sort of the spin we have to realize. And I think many of the Western countries are realizing. For companies like Reliance, it is the bread and butter, right? I mean, so if we don't do it, there is no mass adoption. And at least the larger corporations in India, they rely on mass adoption. right? That is their core sort of business acumen, and so the stack has to cater to those needs, cater to those human capabilities, rather than just putting it out there and assuming people will learn it, figure it out.
So like every other system, essentially at the top of the business architecture are the choices, the requirements, the needs that you are trying to solve. So that's a great point, and it brings back up everyone to the first principle thinking, that for whom are we solving, essentially. So thank you, Gaurav, for that nuanced answer. um, Derek, you have gone from building Flutura, which was focused on industrial AI, to now leading the industrial AI practice within uh, the Accenture. So, in that journey, what fundamentally changed your understanding of what makes intelligence durable, especially in physical systems that operate under climate stress? Now, why I'm asking this question is because your work actually spreads across different kinds of industrial verticals, right? And those are the places where the impact of climate uh, sh- uh, is highest on physical existing systems, machinery, logistics, supply chain. uh, it would be great to have your perspective on that, because again it boils down to the question of whether we can build one general AI that solves for all, or do we have to actually make choices specific sometimes to the problem that we are solving at hand.
So as a startup, actually, you're on a speedboat. You are zigzagging. You can quickly maneuver, but when you're part of a large corporate, you're on an oil tanker. It moves very slowly but steadily, so to speak, right? But but big difference I saw in the industrial AI side is, as a startup, we were not selling outcomes. We are selling products and features. But a large company has the ability to guarantee outcomes, put skin in the game, and absorb the risk of not meeting that outcome. There's a big difference. So they can strike mega deals with that, right? So that's a different. I'll bring it alive with an example. Uh, and this is something. So if you look at refinery, right? Many refineries are situated in the heart of communities. For example, BPCL is in the middle of Mumbai city, right? Um, and they're always emitting gases. For example, methane gases. What it gets into the community. So by law, we are required to monitor the emission of dangerous chemicals into the community, so to speak. So we're working for this customer in Houston. And so if you look at there's a company called Marathon Oil. In 2025, they have fined about $240 million because of the excess amount of methane they emitted into the community. That's a big number, right? So if you look at traditional monitoring, which was done, you had sensors placed, and sensors have that blind spots. You can't instrument the whole refinery, so to speak, right? So what today is available is drone intelligence. So what they did actually was this refinery. Uh, so it had various textures of it. So you will have a drone flying over at a low altitude. It can detect the presence of dangerous gases, and it can also isolate the particular valve from which it is leaking. So it can really zoom in and say this is where the root cause of the problem. So there is a drone scan on it, and now you have even satellite scan on it. So satellite is observing at a higher altitude the emission of methane gases and what is the dispersion rate into the community and stuff like that. Drone has a limited range, and they can also benchmark two refineries. This is emitting more than less and all of that. So if you look at the uh, monitoring, it has gone out of the fence. Earlier it was inside the fence, but now you're gone on a larger span. So you look at different textures of data. You're looking at vision data. Then you have to look at local law. So in this case, what we wanted to do was, what we actually did rather was we looked at the vision data. Vision AI models were there. It will detect the presence or absence of methane. And then there are two types of laws. One is a federal law, which says how much emission is possible, and there are so many clauses in it. And then each state has its local state laws. California has a very tight law, whereas Texas, because of the lobbying, it's very loose. Okay, loose set of laws. So the agent had to look at emission data. The agent had to look at federal laws. The agent had to look at local laws and project the risk out of non-compliance to it. Okay, so you're looking at structured data, unstructured data. Suddenly, what you have is a set of clauses becomes your knowledge graph on which the agent acts and reasons out, saying that you're not compliant. So, and this enables a tighter guaranteeing of outcomes because you're looking at a much more broader spectrum of data. I call it three eyes, right? You know, if you look at an oil and gas operation, you have eyes on the sky, right? You have eyes on the ground. Sometimes you have spot robo or sensors, and if you're having an underwater operation, you have underwater rovers, right? You have three eyes, so your perception actually gets dramatically magnified when you have these eyes, and that allows you to promise a lot of outcomes to the customer. So
That's very interesting to know, Derek. These are stories that are not found on, unfortunately, still on AI. One has to actually come and listen to experience. So thank you for sharing those anecdotes. S- Gaurav, you highlighted previously about the key trends that you see affecting your business, and also how the aspect of change management is important. Um, since you have been in the center of AI tech product business in your role at ITC, what are the things that people don't really talk about when it comes to AI implementation? Um, if you could touch upon things around cost, the risk of errors on the business, the impact these have in terms of actual adoption and scaling across enterprises. I think that would be great learnings for the entire audience, especially given ITC's reputation of being an AI first organization.
Uh, so like I was mentioning earlier, right? While it's not easy, there has to be a concerted effort and a method to the madness, if I would sort of say today, right? Because at the end of the day, I think what we've sort of realized the golden, sauce for us is to make sure that everything is hinged around a problem statement that we are trying to solve, right? So as long as we are able to find out what problem statement we are trying to solve, and then work backwards from there on saying what is the business process, how do I reimagine it, to what is the data requirement, because data becomes the fundamental bedrock for any AI model to work, right? And then work myself back to say what model will help me solve it, what are the outcomes I'm looking at. I think that process has stead us in, worked for us, and at the end of the day helped us deliver value. Now we are very, very diverse conglomerate and a very diverse business. So if I look at my agri business, it could be things around drone tech, satellite imagery. If I look at my paper business, again we're trying to find out, with specifically regulations, and you were talking in the previous this thing about regulations, like there is a European Union deforestation regulation which asks us to map every plot from where I'm actually procuring wood, which goes into making paper, for example. So I can't do that without the power of AI at the end of the day, and also without the power of satellite imagery and geospatial tagging and things like that. So every business, if I go into my foods business, then it is about deploying AI for maybe an ad campaign that we are running, right? So earlier we used to do filming, get artists, do scripting. All of that has now been transformed in, using with the power of AI, where I can create digital avatars, convert them into real life avatars, convert that into a DVC, before I actually take it to market. And I can specifically do an ad campaign, on every geography. It could be a pin code level. It depends on, what is the genre and who is actually looking at it. What is the TG? So I can actually create. So it gives me a lot of flexibility. But at the end of the day, when you have to do this, you have to take baby steps, and like you were mentioning earlier, right, the baby has to crawl before it can start running, and that's sort of very, very important. So we've sort of taking it step by step process, making sure that whether it's my manufacturing process, whether it is my risks and compliance from a finance perspective, or whether it is my supply chain, making sure that I have high degree of OTIF numbers, which is on time and full numbers back to my customers, or it is customer experience at the end of the day, or engagement with the community on products that we want to really build. Like there's a new product which sort of we launched something called Right Shift, which is for adults of 40 and 40 plus. Now, some of those came out of the insights, that our AI engine threw to say that this is a segment that people are actually looking for, and there aren't really products available in the market which cater to that segment. So a lot of insights which come back from AI, action is taken, and then AI is used to maybe take that back to market. So that whole loop needs to get closed at the end of the day, right? In all of this, there are obviously challenges, like we spoke about people process technology. That's the way I look at it. And still today, our fundamental belief is that people remain at the bedrock of making sure that all of this happens and the value gets unlocked. The second piece is we have a relentless focus on quality, and that's where we see most of our AI deployment to make sure that the quality, the product that we deliver back to the masses, is supreme quality, and that's where we differentiate ourselves, and we continue to. So we're an organization which is obsessed with quality. So whether it's vision systems, whether it's deployment of AI algorithms across factories, across product lines, quality becomes one cornerstone that we look at. A lot of our use cases getting deployed.
Thanks, Gaurav. That's a very rounded and wholesome answer. And I think I am feeling a lot more enriched with the last 1 hour of insights, concentrated insights that I have received. I'm sure the audience feels the same way. So thank you so much, everyone, Michael, Gaurav, Gaurav and Derek, for being on the panel with us. In the interest of time, since I can see there's a timer there, we would like to conclude the session where I pass on the mic to my colleague Divya for a quick closing remark by my co-founder Rashmit. Over to you, Divya.
What emerged clearly today is this: intelligence does not scale because models are large. It scales because systems are aligned. We have heard about localization for equitable access. We've heard about institutionalizing the design and plumbing, change management, sovereign AI infrastructure for cost effectiveness, and also business viability and value creation. Before we formally conclude, as Prateep was mentioning, I would like to invite Rashmit Singh Sukhmani, our CTO at Satsha, to share some closing remarks and reflection from technology perspective.
I think after a long time, I've seen such a deeper discussion, especially on the AI part, right? I've been a firm believer where AI cannot be just a image interpreter or data interpreter. I think that's a journey what we have been seeing in the last 2 years. It has become more like a contextual intelligence layer embedded inside platforms, shaping data workflows, data and connecting the decisions end to end of it. And I think we as an industry are moving towards that, right? Uh, I'll not take much of time in the interest of the time as well. The three things that I have identified based on the conversation here. Uh, the first one is definitely we all have to go away from the project thinking to more like an intelligence infrastructure. I think that was one of the key outcomes that has came up. Second, from analytics to decision authority, this is where we want AI more like a complementing kind of a service, not like a replacing a human. Yeah. The third one would be the compute capacity to decision economics. I think the adoption, the compute infrastructure, the great point that you made, especially on the GPU and the example that you gave on the education. I think this is where it's not just the model or bespoke model that's going to solve the issue. It's more like a system architecture which has to be now powered by the infrastructure more from a system thinking point of view, and that has to be reflected more in terms of your algorithm, your design around that. And finally, I think it is important that today we architect interoperable intelligent system that can span chips, compute, sensing, models, applications, energies, and institutions. This requires coordination, not fragmentation, meaning definitely, as you look at, like, everyone has to come together. It's not like some big companies are building, but someone has to also utilize that. And we Indians are especially great at apply intelligence, and I think we'll be playing that part, especially from the not from the global south, but somewhere in the northern hemisphere. Uh, then leadership, and it's not experimentation. I think there should be a proper thought leadership around AI as a strategy, not like a component of your infrastructure as such. One final thing, it has to now become a national capability. We have been talking about foundational model, we have been talking about system architecture as such. Right now we all have to think from an angle of how can it become a national capability where everyone as a citizen can utilize those services. With that, I'll hand over to Divya to take it forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmit. And we would like to now present a token of appreciation for all the esteemed panelists. And thank you for your time and insights. And I will call upon my colleagues to do that, if I may. So we have Gaurav Kataria, sir, right from here. Yes. I know.